Today, we're tackling a moment in modern history that no American alive in 2001 can ever forget. September 11, 2001. A single morning that shook the United States, stunned the world, and changed the course of history forever. So sit back, take a deep breath, and let's walk through what happened that day, why it happened, and how it shaped the world we live in today. It was a Tuesday morning like any other. The skies across the East Coast were clear and blue. In New York City, commuters poured into subways, Wall Street traders grabbed their coffee, and thousands of people filed into the World Trade Center, the proud twin towers that dominated the Manhattan skyline. At Boston's Logan Airport, Newark International, and Dulles near Washington, D.C., for planes were boarding passengers for cross-country flights to Los Angeles and San Francisco. Ordinary people, business travelers, vacationers, even children, took their seats. They had no idea what was about to unfold. On board those 4 planes were 19 hijackers, trained by Al-Qaeda, an Islamist extremist group led by Osama bin Laden. Their plan was meticulous, years in the making. They had trained in flight schools in the United States, learned how to bypass airport security, and chosen early morning flights because the planes would be heavy with fuel. Their targets? Symbols of American power. The World Trade Center, economic power. The Pentagon, military power. The U.S. Capitol or White House, political power. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 slammed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center between the 93rd and 99th floors. The explosion sent fire and smoke billowing into the sky. At first, confusion reigned. Many thought it was a tragic accident. Maybe a small plane had gotten off course. But then at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower between the 77th and 85th floors in a fire explosion broadcast live to millions. At that moment, America knew this was no accident. This was war. Inside the Twin Towers, chaos turned to desperation. Elevators had been destroyed. Stairwells were filling with smoke. Some workers managed to escape down dozens of flights of stairs. Others were trapped above the impact zones. Calls flooded 911 operators. People phoned loved ones to say goodbye. Some waved from broken windows, hoping for rescue that would never come. Tragically, some victims, facing impossible choices, jumped from the towers. Those images remain some of the most haunting from that day. While all eyes were on New York, another plane was heading toward Washington. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, slicing through the western side of the building. 125 military and civilian personnel inside were killed, along with all 64 people on board the plane. The symbol of American military strength was burning. Meanwhile, United Airlines Flight 93 had been hijacked after taking off from Newark. Its destination? Likely the Capitol building or the White House. But passengers had learned through phone calls about the other attacks. They knew they couldn't let the hijackers succeed. Ordinary people, business travelers, mothers, fathers, banded together. They stormed the cockpit, fighting with their bare hands. At 10:03 a.m., the plane crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Everyone on board died, but they saved countless lives in Washington, D.C. One passenger's words still echo today. Let's roll. At 9:59 a.m., less than an hour after being hit, the South Tower collapsed in a thunderous cloud of dust and debris. People screamed, ran, and stumbled to the streets as daylight turned to darkness. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower fell. The mighty Twin Towers, once symbols of global commerce, were reduced to rubble in less than 2 hours. Rescue workers, already inside trying to save lives, were buried in collapse. The skyline of New York and the psyche of America was forever changed. By the end of the day, nearly 3,000 people were killed. 2,753 in New York City, 184 at the Pentagon, 40 in Pennsylvania. Over 6,000 were injured. 343 firefighters, 60 police officers and 8 paramedics died while trying to save others. It was the deadliest terrorist attack in human history. As news spread, the world reacted with shock and grief. In London, Paris, Berlin, Sydney, and beyond, people held vigils. Even rivals of the United States offered condolences. NATO, for the first time in its history, invoked Article 5. An attack on one member is an attack on all. But sympathy was soon followed by resolve. Within weeks, the U.S. launched a war on terror, invading Afghanistan to target al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Security worldwide changed overnight. Airports introduced strict screening. Cockpit doors were reinforced, and intelligence operations expanded massively. For Americans, 9/11 was not just a tragedy. It was trauma played out in real time. Families desperately searched for loved ones. Flyers with faces of the missing were posted around Manhattan. Smoke from Ground Zero filled the air for weeks. President George W. Bush addressed the nation that night, calling the attacks evil, despicable acts of terror. In the days following, he stood on the rubble of the World Trade Center with a bullhorn, declaring, "I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon." The legacy of 9/11 is one of both grief and resilience. At Ground Zero, the 9/11 Memorial and Museum now honors every victim, with reflecting pools where the towers once stood and names etched in bronze. Each year, on September 11th, 2 beams of light shine into sky over Manhattan, symbolizing the lost towers. Across America, bells toll, moments of silence are observed, and people remember exactly where they were when they heard the news. But the legacy also lives in the everyday heroes. Firefighters who climbed 100 floors, passengers on Flight 93 who said, "Let's roll," strangers who help each other escape the dust and rubble. So, here's the lesson. September 11, 2001 wasn't just a day of tragedy. It was a day that tested human courage, unity, and resilience. The attacks changed security, politics, and global history. But they also showed how ordinary people can rise to extraordinary courage. If this story helped you understand 9/11 better, or reminded you of details you've forgotten, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us share these stories further. Don't forget to subscribe to Timeless Tales for more history that's short, sharp, and unforgettable. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Where were you on September 11th? Or if you weren't born yet, what part of this history struck you the most? Until next time, keep learning, keep remembering, and as always, stay curious.